Strangely, around this planet, people are beginning to hear a massive hum, strange sound. It's happening in Russia, Costa Rica, parts of the United States, and nobody seems to know where it's coming from. What does it all mean? In a moment, we'll be talking with Whitley Strieber about that, some other Earth changes and potential calamities. His new book is called Solving the Communion Enigma, and we'll be back with Whitley in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast. I'm George Norrie. Whitley Strieber, you know him. He's been on Coast to Coast. He hosts a show for us, and he, of course, is an award-winning, best-selling author. His latest work, Solving the Communion Enigma, his website, unknowncountry.com, gathers hundreds of thousands of people every day, and here he is back on Coast to Coast. Whitley, how are you?
I'm great, George, and very glad to be back on the show as always.
Likewise, I'm looking forward to this.
Fast forward a few years, and it turns out it's commonplace in the experience, and it means that whatever this is, it is something really new and much bigger than we have yet realized. You know, it reminds me a little bit, and it's kind of related. We're going to talk about those strange sounds.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
Well, listen to this. This is from Corinthians. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye at the last trump, for the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. There's some kind of extraordinary connection going on in there somewhere. See what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
It's very, very wonderful, but
I played the sound last week, Whitley, of this hum in Costa Rica, where nearly the entire populace of the country heard this thing. And it was almost frightening. I mean, you could hear the planet growl.
It's a strange sound. A few nights ago, I did not know about this until late last week. I had not been aware of it. But two things happened here. First, there was a reporter who has an NPR show, was here at the house interviewing me about communion. Very sweet guy. He's interviewed me before about my books, recording it. And he said, well, you know, that sound, there's a sort of trumpet that, I think he said it was, it may have said trumpet, like I'm not sure, but he said it was a sound that he was hearing was quite loud, and he was concerned it was going to affect his recording. The problem was, Ann and I didn't hear anything.
Well, you didn't hear nothing. Nothing.
And so I was saying to him, well, you know, we're not hearing anything, and he would listen in his earphones to his recording, and it wasn't being picked up on the recording, but he was hearing it. And that continued through the whole interview. It was a perfectly normal interview in every other respect, except for one thing. I was sitting with my back to the kitchen in the little dining room, and he was across from me, and I was talking into a microphone. In the kitchen, there are 3 clocks. 2 of them are connected to the mains power, and one of them is battery powered. And after he left, we discovered all 3 clocks were 5 minutes slow. Everything else, every other clock in the house was fine. So what in the heck was that about?
Yeah. Well, this hum that people are hearing all over the planet now, different regions of the United States, different countries, there's some, one would say, all right, there's something physical happening to the planet deep down, something's going on, maybe an earthquake, who knows what.
Who knows, because there's one incident of this which there seems to be a possible connection with an earthquake, and that is the sound that occurred in Malaysia on the 11th and 12th of this month. Immediately after that, in fact, on the same day, there was a 7.3 earthquake in Sumatra in Indonesia.
Okay.
Admittedly, a couple of thousand miles away, but there are instances of sounds being heard immediately prior to earthquakes.
Well, I would guess, Whitley, if tectonic plates are shifting against each other, they would make a noise, right?
Well, it depends depends on how close to the surface it is. It depends on a lot of things. But, George, if this is happening all over the world, and it has something to do with earthquakes,
we got a problem.
You better tighten your teeth, because this is going to be a major thing. Now, there's something else going on that cannot be ignored, and it's the YouTube phenomenon, I call it.
Right.
Which is that people are recording the sound off of YouTube, making a little video and dubbing it onto their own video and claiming it's happening in their town too.
Oh, that's a good point.
So there's a lot of that, but not as much as you would think. It's easy to identify because you can hear that it's the same sound as on another video. But like the one in Sweden in November, that is real, and in fact, the one in Malaysia is very, very strange. The one in
Costa Rica.
Well, the one in Costa Rica is, and a lot of people heard that, and then also in Alberta, and in two or three places in Canada and Alberta. It is. There are enough of these happening to where it almost certainly is real. I was just going to add that. Again, this was before the interview, so it must have been the interview must have been on Thursday or Friday of last year. Don't remember. Anyway, one of those nights, we were sitting here in our living room, and we heard this sound like a gigantic trumpet sounding outside. It was very brief and almost immediately covered by the sound of a jet. And Ann and I sort of looked at each other and thought, did we hear that right? What was that? And then we dismissed it. And then later, of course, the reporter heard the same sound in his. He heard it. We didn't hear it. We couldn't hear it.
Well, if it's an earth change event, and it's heard worldwide, as you're hypothesizing here, this could be huge. I mean, is this something that could split the planet?
Oh, don't say it. It's such a wonderful place.
I know it is.
Yeah, and.
But this is worldwide.
One thing I have learned in all the years of facing and experiencing all of this extraordinary strangeness that's been in my life, we are really something. Human beings are really something. And I would hate to see this end like that.
I would too.
Oh, my, yes.
But let me tell you, if it did, it would be pretty darn fast, Whitley.
Well, one would hope it would at least.
Well, let's look at these possibilities, okay? One, if it's heard worldwide, and we both think it is, right?
I think so, unless it's some outlier like a viral campaign for
a movie or something.
Well, like, for example, the tripod sound in War of the Worlds is kind of like it. And the Kraken sound in Clash of the Titans, if you remember that, that sounds like it, a bit like it, too.
Would some movie promoter do 4 or 5 countries with a promotion just to do that to people?
Well, here's the thing. I have heard this every time something really weird shows up. Like, remember the drones in 2007?
Yeah.
Everyone was saying, it's a movie promotion. The movie never happened. Never happened. And it was supposed to be a promotion for a viral for Michael Bay's movie Transformers. Only I knew a lot of people working on that at many different levels, and I asked around, and no one knew it wasn't them. So, in this, I have a feeling it's the same deal here, that there's a core of something strange going on, which has been muddied. The waters have been massively muddied by, and will be muddied more by people posting dubbed videos and fake videos. But the basic fact is, this is apparently being heard around the world.
And it's a strange sound.
And it's very eerie, and there's 2 or 3 forms of it. One of them sounds like in Alberta, like a trumpet. The other one, there's another one, the one in Sweden and in Malaysia, is more like a kind of a roar.
Uh-huh.
And the one we heard sounded trumpet-like, I would say.
And yet science has no idea what's going on.
No, it's not clear, because earthquakes earthquake sounds are, first of all, they're more like creaking noises, and it's because plates are creaking together. They're not common; they're rare, and they're very local. In other words, you might hear it within a few miles of the epicenter of an earthquake at most, not worldwide. And I have to admit, I'm creeped out, very honestly.
Well, I am too. The more I hear about this thing. What about this? I mean, as far-fetched as it may seem, what about something, somebody, some civilization in the center of the planet doing something?
Living amid this thing? Or is it going to come to some kind of a climactic moment, like it says in Corinthians, where we shall be changed? I really don't have an answer, except I do know this. At a deep level, while there are all kinds of misapprehensions and confusions and hoaxes and whatnot, when you get down to the core of it, something real is happening, and it is not like it used to be in the past. It is much more extensive now. Yes, for example, we can see crop formations going back hundreds of years. Jacques Vallée found instances of UFO sighters walked across the road in front of...
They're done. Hey, Whitley, hold on. We're going to come back with you in just a moment, talk a little bit more about Earth changes, and then we'll get into solving the communion enigma. I'm George Norrie, back in a moment with Whitley Strieber on Coast to Coast AM.
More. But nothing compares to what it's been like for the past 50 years in any of these things.
I wonder if this has any tie in with the Mayan calendar date.
Well, George, I have just dismissed that for years. I thought that when I first interviewed Jose Arguillas about that years ago, when he first came out with his book about it,
right.
And I thought, this is a real stretch of the intellect and the imagination. I just don't. He could be reading this into this calendar. I'm not sure. It's clear that there is in the calendar an end at this time, but now I feel like it's true that these strange signs do seem to be increasing. Like there's been a lot of UFO activity since the beginning of 2012, and is that simply because people are more sensitized to it? Or is it because there really is something happening? And, you have these sounds, and so far, none of the explanations of the real sounds have really been very satisfactory. In other words, they haven't been debunked yet.
And they're not digging sounds underground, are they?
No, it's not. Most people describe it as seeming like it's coming from the sky. And that it is something, and it could be. I mean, we haven't talked about the HARP project, which has now got installations more than just the one installation in Alaska.
Yeah.
And we don't really know what its significance is or what it may be doing. We're told that they excite the ionosphere so that they can bounce radar off of the electromagnetic ions, but and we also know that the amount of energy that HARP transmits is not all that large in comparison with nature. I mean, it's certainly all of the HARP installations in the world pumping out energy 24 hours a day aren't even going to approach 15 minutes of an ordinary thunderstorm in terms of the amount of energy. But what we don't know is this like a straw breaking the camel's back, or exactly is it our interference that's doing this? I don't know. I think it's a possibility at this point. It also could be that there's a new type of plane, a new type of secret aircraft.
But worldwide? That's what's so bizarre.
I agree.
That's the bizarre part.
I agree. Whenever you reach for an explanation of this, you basically come up empty-handed. if even 4 or 5 of these sounds are authentic, and I think at least that many, and maybe more are, then you really have got a strange world phenomenon simply because it's worldwide. I think, for example, the one in Sweden and the one in Malaysia are almost certainly authentic sounds and not explained. And the thing is, people will say, well, maybe it was a factory or something, but where was it 2 months ago? Did it just get built?
And we know if it was in this country, there are no factories anymore, so it couldn't have been
right.
that.
Our factories all moved to China.
They're gone.
Yep. And the sound Ann and I heard was very distinctive. It was enough to make us really look at each other, and it was a chilling, big, like a gigantic trumpet coming in from outside. That's what it sounded like.
End times?
Oh, my.
You don't want to go there, I know, but...
Well, look,
you know?
I've never minded the may you live in interesting times curse, because I want to live in interesting times. Just not that interesting.
Yeah.
Let's hope not, but what if it happens? Well...
And there are a lot of people out there who could be right.
Well, you know, a year ago I would have scoffed. I would have said there's just simply no evidence. But there's too many strange things happening now, and I think that whether it has anything to do with the Mayan calendar or not, there are a fair number of anomalous things taking place right now that I wouldn't have expected to be at this level of intensity.
And you know, I always say there are no coincidences. Things are happening for reasons. There's synchronicity out there all over the place. And you're right. Things are happening in a very peculiar way these days.
They really are. Yeah, they really are. Well, we'll see. I mean, you know, I think, I guess my kind of gut level feeling is that this has something to do with the planet itself, and not that's my sense of it. That it's like a voice of the earth or something.
Yeah.
And it's very stirring. It's quite a remarkable sound.
Well, if the planet is alive, and I believe it is, you know, the old Gaia theory, what if it is moaning and groaning? Maybe it's hurting for some reason.
Well,
you know, you step on a puppy's paw, it wails. I mean, it wails. I mean, what if we're doing this or something's happening to the planet and it makes this sound? We can't negate that.
If that's true, we will hear more.
Yes.
Ain't over yet then.
No.